Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion, and that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
Welcome back, people. Today's date, February 6, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, we are going to keep this kind of family-friendly, so I'll try to watch my language a little bit, but there may be some things that we might show that might be on the disturbing and graphic side, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Apologies, everybody, when this thing we know we're starting a little bit late. Some things just are unavoidable, and technology will always be somebody's bane of existence. Anyway, beyond that, guys, let's just go ahead and get into it. You guys know that I talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon supporter, if you will, that was voted to the House of Representatives, and we kept on saying this entire week that something needs to happen. I mean, she believed at first the Parkland shooting was staged. She believed 9/11 really didn't happen. And she followed everything else that came from the QAnon forum that everybody believes is true. And we kept on hoping that the Republicans, especially Kevin McCarthy, would do something about her. We expected Mitch McConnell to do something about her. And, of course, the Republicans have been silent. So the Democrats said, okay, we'll do something.
To the roll. Let's listen.
The days are 199. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
All right, that's it. It's official. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican representative from Georgia, will now be barred from serving on the Education and Labor Committee as well as the Budget Committee. It's over. Let's see the final roll call. We'll see how many people actually voted in favor. We see Liz Cheney speaking right now. Let me just listen for a moment to see what she's saying.
House Resolution 95.
It is read. Without objection, the resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Okay.
All right, so they're going back to some procedural issues right now on the House floor. Ro Khanna, give me your final reaction.
Well, I think that this was an important step for the country. It makes a clear statement that you can't say that 9/11 didn't take place. You can't say that believe in QAnon theories. You can't threaten violence against elected officials and still hope to serve in the United States Congress. There should be a very, very high bar from removing someone from committees, but this was not a hard call.
It certainly wasn't a hard call for the Democrats. Dana, it was a hard call for a lot of Republicans, although we did see a significant number of Republicans join with the Democrats and say this woman has no place on these committees.
That's right, including, according to a list that our colleague Manu Raju sent, a freshman, Nicole Malliotakis, who voted to remove her. So it is Marjorie Taylor Greene's fellow Republican freshman who apparently voted to remove her from these committees. She's from New York, and for the most part, except for a few others, most of them voted for the impeachment of the president as well. I should say, we're looking at those members, those Republican members, for lots of reasons, because they're in moderate districts, because they're in swing districts, because they, are at a certain place politically, or even for other reasons. But so they are very different votes, but it is.
Okay, sorry, I had to cut her off. Just because the simple fact of the matter, she was going a roundabout way of saying Republicans won't remove her. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been relieved of her duties as far as her committee assignments. Now, you're probably wondering what that means. Unfortunately, that still means that Marjorie Taylor Greene is still a part of the House of Representatives, and you would think for somebody who just got relieved of their duties, and is still getting paid as a representative, would be basically vengeful, would be a little bit spiteful, probably a little bit hateful. Nope.
I want you to know that free speech matters. Free speech really matters. And yesterday, when the Democrats and 11 of my Republican colleagues decided to strip me of my committee assignments, Education and Labor and the Budget Committee, you know what they did? They actually stripped my district of their voice. They stripped my voters of having representation to work for them for the budget. A successful business owner that knows how to make a profit, not a loss. I had the greatest opportunity yesterday, and I'm so grateful for it. I got to say what I had done wrong. And do you know how freeing that is? I'm not kidding. I seriously feel blessed by God because I got to do it on a world stage. I got to say, I said things wrong. I believe things that were wrong. And you know what? I'm so happy I got to do that. My district is thrilled with me. People are all over the country are thankful and supporting me. And for that, I'm grateful to them. None of us are perfect. And when we go about our life thinking that we are, we're such hypocrites. Truthfully, we really are. If we think we're perfect and can judge one another, that's such a mistake. So going forward, I've been freed. I do. I feel freed because you know what's happening on these committees? You see, we have basically a tyrannically controlled government right now. The Democrats. We've got Joe Biden writing executive order after executive order, sign him, doing whatever he wants up there in the White House. We have Nancy Pelosi leading the Democrats in Congress to do whatever they want. They don't care what Republicans have to say. They don't care about what our districts and our voters have to say. They only care about pushing their socialist agenda through. They only care about taking away our freedoms. That's not right. So if I was on a committee, I'd be wasting my time because my conservative values wouldn't be heard, and neither would my districts. So I look forward to going home and seeing people in my district. I'm thankful and overwhelmed by their support. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity.
I'm sorry. But ladies and gentlemen, Major Taylor Greene is literally Donald Trump in female form at this point. I mean, I've been freed? No, you've been basically reduced to just what you know what you are? You went from literally being on the starting five to now riding the bench. And the thing about it is, yes, the Democrats did actually have her removed from all her committee assignments. Unfortunately, they don't have the power unless it's an executive order or a motion that's brought up forward that requires 2/3 majority. The only way to get fully rid of her is basically that. But you would think that the Republicans would have sat there and been like, "Oh, we gotta get rid of her. That's another Donald Trump." And the thing about this is, every Democrat in the House of Representatives voted to have her removed. Only 17 Republicans voted along with the Democrats. which tells you in the House of Representatives, if 17 other Republicans voted to also have her removed, imagine the rest of them that said she was okay. That alone should be scary, because you just heard her. She acts as if they done her a favor. You can send me home. I can be more of a constituent. Lady, you can't do anything because right now your position is nothing more than a glorified placeholder. That's it. You're not allowed to do anything else, and as you shouldn't, because like I said, this is the same woman that threatened her and her staff threatened another representative to where they had to be moved away from her because it was about to be a trial Jesus not me situation. Like I said, for the longest time she didn't answer her own interviews unless it was from OAN or someone else that was more to her side and making her look good. She turned around and talked QAnon theories until he threatened her job, and then she's gonna sit there and say, "Well, I was wrong." Yeah, you're wrong now because you're about to lose your position of power, and so therefore you had to sit there and spin it. And it is amazing to me that even Moscow Mitch, the most corrupt senator the most corrupt senator of all time, and that's saying a lot, even said that when Moscow Mitch says you gotta go, that's pretty bad. But again, we expect the Republicans, especially Kevin McCarthy, because he has the ability to have her removed, unless, like I said before, the Democrats bring up a measure, but that measure is going to require a major majority vote, and it could still go through. But at the same time, it is amazing the level of just Donald Trumpism. And I said this before, Donald Trump, when he became president, he opened a door for rhetoric like this, for people like this. And I kept saying, unless we make Donald Trump an example, and someone already said it before me, I forgot who said it. Someone sat there and said, unless we make Donald Trump an example, there's going to be somebody like him that's worse than him, but also smarter than him, to where they will never be caught in stuff like this. I truly believe it. That's the reason why Donald Trump's impeachment has so much importance, because we do have to make him answer for his actions. He has grifted his way all this time throughout life, but he needs to finally pay the piper. But with Major Taylor Greene, at least that's one woman that won't be able to affect us in a negative way until hopefully she is relieved of her duties at her position. One can hope. Another story I'm going to, guys, like I said before, I talked about this one about the 9-year-old girl and 3 officers being suspended in Rochester, New York. I just want to play the video again. I will go ahead and say this video is definitely graphic. I'm sorry, it's disturbing. It's not graphic, it's disturbing, because again, you're going to see police officers basically handle a 9-year-old girl, and like I said, viewer discretion is advised.
I want my dad. I'm not getting in no car until I see my dad.
Here, just stop for a second.
I want my dad.
Patrol 47, I'm in.
I want my dad. No.
Stop. Don't kick us, dear.
Stop! Oh my God!
Stop, dude. Just relax.
Okay.
You
Wait,
done?
my mom, she's pregnant.
Are you done?
My mom
Are you
pregnant. Yes, please just
Stop.
let me go. I want my dad.
Stop, dear.
Wait, can I just please get the snow off of me?
I'll get the snow off
It
you.
is cold.
Get in the car. You've had your chance.
Get in the car now.
Okay? Okay? You've had your chances.
Ah,
Sit up.
no.
You're acting like a child.
I want to go.
Stop.
I am a child.
I just went back to the house.
My arm, I have a
All right.
bad arm.
Stand up. Stand up.
Yeah, let
I
that
have a
go.
Stand
bad
up.
arm.
Then stand up.
Get up. Come on.
I want my dad.
Come on.
I can't hurt. She's on the
I want
ground.
a girl officer.
Stand up. Stand
I
up.
want a girl officer. I'm right here.
You're gonna get sprayed.
Yeah, I want a girl officer.
Stand up.
Stand up.
I want a girl. Please don't stand up for me.
Okay, they'll get off of you, but you have to get up, okay? Will you get up? Can you let go over? I got her. I got her. I'm gonna pay for you and I don't want to. So sit back. Then sit back. Come on. This is your last chance, otherwise pepper spray's going in your eyeballs. Come on, let's go.
Sorry, just keep me safe for a minute.
Come on.
I want my dad.
Come on. I'm gonna go get him. Now sit back. Come on. I will fix it. I will fix it.
Why don't we separate now?
Just stop.
Please. I will get your dad.
No, you said that you were gonna pepper spray me. No, please, no, stop.
Sit back.
Just spray her.
No, I have
Just spray her at this point.
Stop!
Here. I got her. I got her.
Yeah. Please wipe my eye! Wipe my eye, please!
So that was actually the video again, like I showed this Wednesday. 3 officers that were responding to a call that was pretty much a call to saying that a 9-year-old girl may possibly harm herself and her mother. And that's how 3 officers treated her. That there was probably signs of mental issues. And again, it's a 9-year-old girl. So again, I asked the questions on Wednesday, same I ask now. Is just that, well, number one, it's a minor. Where's a social caseworker? Because that's the first thing I was asking on the scene. Like, usually in these cases, don't a social caseworker actually goes there because it's a minor? On top of that, first of all, why were two male cops handling a little girl and having issues? And I like, so it's like, okay, you guys literally had 200 pounds on her, and you're fighting her. And again, this is also, I mean, who's not to say the girl wasn't having mental issues or distressing, because they certainly weren't trying to de-escalate the situation. They were just simply trying to handcuff her and put her in the car. Again, they showed all signs of aggression, but no signs of de-escalation. And even then, the woman cop, which I still found amazing, where the little girl had asked for a female officer, which, again, she was right. She should have been handled by a female officer. And the female officer sat there and said, look, this is going to happen, or, you know, either you're going to do what I want you to do, or I'm going to pepper spray you. Why are we pepper spraying a 9-year-old? And again, the simple fact of the matter, guys, is just that as it comes to the simple fact, as it comes to this point, of course, there was some action on this, and I'll just go ahead and go to the article here. Of course, after this happened, the mayor of Rochester, New York, outlined a police draft reform recommendation saying aimed at protecting the sanctity of life. They said, and I quote, "At the heart of it, we need to place the safety of human life at the core of Rochester Police Department's policing philosophy." She also said that the current draft does not specify imminent. However, my recommendation would be to change that. She doesn't specifically mention that the fact that the reason why she's pointing this out was around the incident of the 9-year-old girl, which I find very interesting, because let me get this straight. You're going to sit there and say that we need to have police reform, but it's not about the fact that 2 of your officers could not handle a 9-year-old, 3 of your officers could not handle a 9-year-old girl, and because of that, now all of a sudden there needs to be Rochester police reform? I'm not saying it's coincidence. I'm just saying. But again, an update on that case though. The girl's mother said that she's intending to sue the police department for mental and distress and trauma. And it's interesting, like I said before. It's the level of how they handle stuff, and I've said this about police reform. I always say F the police. I still say F the police, just because police themselves these days, I've said it before, you train longer at any position aside from law enforcement to be certified. You know, like I said, a beautician takes a year or more to be certified. A dentist has to go through medical school as well as the school of dentistry just to be a dentist, orthodontist. Either way you cut the mustard, you're looking at a year plus. Do you know the current time frame for law enforcement? 6 months. Inside of 6 months, you are supposedly trained to protect and serve. And they are not, and I said this before about defund the police. Defund the police does not mean you're taking money away from law enforcement. You're actually asking law enforcement to be trained in de-escalation, to be trained in mental health awareness and how to cope and how to deal and combat it. You're also trained in other non-lethal tactics. You're not exactly trained to use the gun first or to go for anything that might be harming or agitate the situation. And at the same time, there's actually mental checks and also psychological reviews. Because if you're on a job that basically where you have the ability to end somebody's life, yes, I want to see you in front of a therapist every now and then to make sure you're straight. Not that hard. But again, I know for some fact there's going to be some people saying, well, the police get too much crap thrown at them. Yes, like any other job. But just like in the world of aviation, as Chris Rock said it best, we can't have bad apples where they're actually in the cockpit of many other lives. We need them to be able to be not perfect, but efficient. Just efficient, not only efficient, but comprehending, contemplative. at the same time, learn to do what every other law enforcement or every other country has done. They've learned to incorporate tactics that have actually helped them better, and crime has dropped. And I know policing is only part of the problem, but it's a major part of the problem that can actually be really be resolved. Really. That also being said, guys, let's keep moving forward. I love the fact that Democrats are now using their majority power, especially because when Republicans are in power, they're always talking about unity. They're always talking about reaching across the panel, really working with the two major parties of government. This only happens when Republicans are not in power. Now, the Democrats are the ones holding the stick, and they're trying to work with them about this COVID-19 relief. And of course, earlier this week, the Republicans decided to return back with a $600 billion plan, which for anybody that's making $45,000 or higher would actually be cut from getting a $1,400 stimulus check. This is when Congress, and I'm so proud of this, that the Democrats are finally flexing their majority muscle.
And votes on a slew of amendments, the Senate finally passing that budget resolution with the vice president sitting in the chair there in the Senate to break the tie, her first and most significant tie-breaking move that she has had to make to date. You saw her there breaking that tie and allowing this to move forward. This allows Democrats to write Biden's package into law, and it really negates the need at this point for any Republicans to actually join on board. As long as the White House can keep moderate Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia on board with this package, they can move forward without the need for Republicans. Now, that being said, President Biden has still made clear that he wants to keep those channels of communication open with Republicans, and he is open to some compromises if it will help him get Republican votes. But it's also clearer now than ever before that President Biden doesn't need those Republican votes. Now, later this morning, President Biden is expected to meet with House Democratic leaders and the chairs of several of the key committees involved in passing and writing this budget resolution and ultimately this $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package. We will also hear from the president later today once the jobs report comes out. And that will be interesting because it will give us the clearest sign yet of the state of the economic recovery, whether that slowdown from the winter is continuing, and that could obviously help or complicate Biden's pitch for the.
Now, obviously, that's great. Like I said before, about Democrats, and I've been shouting this from podcasts since they had the majority. You need to ram stuff through the same way the Republicans did, and honestly, have no remorse for it. Now, of course, the way they did this was called through reconciliation, which means they had to go back and basically take the budget. But doing reconciliation means that they don't need the they don't need the Republicans' votes on this. They can take their majority vote and pass it on through, which I love about that. One problem, though, which actually scared me about all this, is that I keep hearing about not only a single $1,400 check, but Biden also mentioned this, which again has me slightly concerned.
Coming into the Situation Room right now on the president's COVID relief emergency package. He just gave a new interview to CBS News discussing the size of the plan, the potential room for compromise. Let's play this clip.
You said you're not compromising on the $1,400 checks. You made that promise. You're sticking to it. So the big question is who gets the check? Exactly right. Is it someone who makes up to $50,000 or is it someone who makes up to $75,000?
I'm prepared to negotiate that, but here's the deal. Middle class folks need help. But you don't need to get any help to someone making $300,000 or $250,000. So it's somewhere between an individual making up to $75,000 and phasing out, and a couple making up to $150,000 and phasing out. But again, I'm wide open on what that is.
You also want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Is that something you would be willing to negotiate on in order to get Republican support?
Well, apparently that's not going to occur because of the rules of the United States Senate.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this?
My guess is it will not be in it. But I do think that we should have a minimum wage, stand by itself, $15 an hour, and work your way up to the 15. It doesn't have to be boom. And all the economics show if you do that, the whole economy rises. I'm prepared as President of the United States on a separate negotiation on minimum wage to work my way up from what it is now, which is paying. Look, no one should work 40 hours a week and live below the poverty wage. And if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're living below the poverty wage.
But that may not be in your American Rescue Plan.
No, I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive.
I think it was significant. The $15 minimum wage is probably not going to be in this COVID relief package. He doesn't want.
Joe, you know, I understand in the world of politics, there has to be some give and take. You're going to get your 1.9 trillion. You're going to get your 1.9 trillion plan through. That looks to be all but certain. Some people, and now I understand. Look, the argument is that was Republicans' arguments. Rich people don't need checks. Okay, that's a threshold. Well, anybody making $40,000 or above, whoa, that means you knock out at least 20 million Americans. So, like Biden said, well, if you're making $300,000 a month, you don't need it. Okay, then why in the world can we not say that? Because here's the thing that kills me. Like I said, Democrats get one thing right, but at the same time, it's like, whoa, you missed this big-ass hole in the wall. Okay, so you guys want to put a threshold because Republicans will always sit there and say, well, we don't want the Democrats' rich friends to get money. That didn't stop y'all from giving it to billionaires and corporations when y'all run the show, but all right. But Biden turns around and says, okay, well, if you're making $300,000, you don't need it. Okay, then let's just go ahead and say it. Let's go ahead and say that if you make $100,000 a year, if you make $100,000 a year, you don't need it. Okay, threshold right there, plain and simple. If you make $100,000 or more, if you make $100,000 or more a year as single, or if you make, let's just say $175,000 a year if you're a couple, easy. You have one and you have two. Everybody else gets paid. Everybody above those lines, you're well off. I don't see the problem. It's almost like, again, with the Democrats, I don't see why you can't sit there and say, hey, if you make this much, I'll even go 90. If you make $90,000 a year, chances are you don't need it. So set the phase out there right there. Say at $90,000, if you make $90,000 a year, you don't need a stimulus. Say it and be done with it. Because then, even then, at $90,000 and up, there are still some people who are a lot more well off. Because for me around Tennessee, the average median income is really anywhere between $24,000 to almost barely $50,000. So you have actually a majority of people who are $40,000 or less, $40,000 or more away from $90,000 to $100,000 a year. It is not that hard to set the threshold to where you can sit there and say, okay, everybody under this threshold will get stimulus checks because they're struggling. Everybody above this is fine. I don't see how that's a problem. However, the other part of that, which again, Biden, I'm like, dude, you ran on the fact that you were going to raise the minimum wage to $15. Now, I've been saying this best. The minimum wage hasn't been, since 2009, it's still $7.30. We are in 2021, and the minimum wage is still $7.30. It needs to be higher. Now, $15 minimum wage is okay. I still think it needs to be raised way more. I think it needs to match the rate of production and inflation, which I think it puts it currently about $23 an hour. It needs to be that at least. But when Biden says, I don't think the $15 minimum wage will survive, it needs to survive, Biden. It needs to be done specifically within your first term, within your first year of your first term. And the reason why I say that is because that's the policy you ran under. A lot of people in economic poverty literally ran off the simple fact of the matter that you sat there and said that you would raise the minimum wage. And now that even though you signed an executive order to raise the minimum wage, it does need to be included in the bill and it does need to be pushed through. It's just like I said before, Democrats for the next 2 years, you have Congress. So therefore, start writing these bills, start approving them, start getting them to the Senate, letting Chuck Schumer put them out on the floor, and if it comes to a tiebreaker, let Kamala Harris have it. This is the greatest time right now for Democrats to unify and actually do what they say they're going to do, because you ran on a progressive movement in order to get the House and House Representatives and to get a president. You ran on progressive movements. It's time to actually start being progressive. And speaking of being progressive, Democrats have also came out, well, a group of Democrats, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, decided to come out about student loan and about student loan cancellation funds.
Here today to introduce our proposal to cancel $50,000 in student debt.
Right, yeah.
And take a huge burden off so many people in America. College should be a ladder up. For too many people, debt is the anchor that weighs them down, and they rarely overcome it.
Let me be clear. The student debt crisis has always been a racial and economic justice issue. But for too long, the narrative has excluded Black and Latinx communities, and the ways in which this debt has exacerbated deeply entrenched racial and economic inequities in our nation. These disparities didn't just magically occur. They are the consequences of generations of systemic racism, discrimination, and what I call policy violence that has systemically denied Black and Latinx families the opportunity to build wealth, forcing our families to take on greater rates of student debt for the chance at the same degree as our white counterparts.
Data show that canceling the student loan debt would result in greater home ownership rates, more housing stability, improved credit scores, higher incomes, higher GDP, more small business formation, and more jobs. Canceling student loan debt is good for you, whether you have student loan debt or not, because it is good for our economy.
It is the result of a broken system that tells students to get an education or go to college in order to have a stable life, but then does not provide the resources to afford that education. It is the result of a two-tiered system, one for the rich families who can afford tens of thousands of dollars for higher education, and another for the poor and the middle class who have to pay off that education for the rest of their lives. I always say America does not suffer from scarcity, we suffer from greed. This is an important first step, but we can and must go bolder. We cannot be too bold in responding to the pandemic and providing needed help to the American people.
Okay, so of course you see a group of representatives going to Joe Biden saying we need to cancel up to $50,000 of student loans. Now that's okay, but I believe Bernie Sanders said it best. I think we need to go, and it's kind of funny how Representative Omar, she says, well, we can't go too bold. I think we can. I think we can go forward and cancel all student debt completely. Now, just like Senator Warren had sat there and said, if you do cancel student debt up to a certain amount, then yes, credit portfolios will increase. Small business and people who didn't think they could run a small business may actually go and do it. Home ownership may increase because, let's be honest, anybody that's went through the home ownership buying process knows that credit is king and debt to income ratios is everything. And especially with student loans, it's a little hard to make banks who have been bailed out multiple times see that you can be personally qualified to pay a mortgage every month by showing them but you have to show them an exorbitant amount of money just to prove that you can do it. Yes. Student loans, the erasure of student loans can definitely help in all of those situations. But I still say we can go bolder. Why not go for complete cancellation of all student loans? Because then, and only then, I truly believe that a lot of people get on board with that. And yes, the American people deserve a bailout, just like you bail out the banks, just like you bail out billion-dollar industries. Yes. I say the simple fact of the matter, that bailing out student loans is a wonderful idea, and I'm all for it. But it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens with this, because right now it did jump from $10,000 to $50,000. It might as well just go for full cancellation. That's all I'm saying. And I also did talk about this other story. I did talk about this also in the middle of the week, where again it's Black History Month, even though it's the shortest month of the year, but it's still Black History Month. And in our world, and for a lot of us, we celebrate Black 365. So, with that also being said, I did want to talk about something. Unfortunately, my home state of Tennessee has made the news again, especially in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where a black principal decided that the Black History Month theme would be All Lives Matter. Yes, it really did happen. Yes, the principal is black. And yes, I don't know how tone deaf she truly is, but wow. The simple fact of the matter is that at a middle school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, they were having a Black History Month, and the principal says she was inspired by a mural on the school that said "Every child matters," and decided that the Black History Month theme for her school would be All Lives Matter. You can only imagine the blowback from all the parents who decided to call in and thought this was crazy. And of course, she explained her. She tried to, spin it best she could. She said, and I quote, "As a black woman in leadership, I embrace civil rights, Black History Month, and sacrifices that have been made for those that came before me. I hope that my students, many of whom look like me, believe in the possibilities of their unlimited potential." That didn't sound like an apology. I had the opportunity to experience firsthand the fight for equality. Again, that didn't sound like an apology. I was like, I mean, it's like, I just want to sit there and go the whole entire time and say, of course she does say at the beginning, I want to apologize here's the apology. I want to apologize for not more fully considering the context of that theme. That's not an apology. I just want to sit there and go, if I was a parent that was sending my child to that school, the first thing I would sit there and say was, you didn't understand the context of All Lives Matter? Have you been under a rock this entire time? Because how in the world do you sit there and say, well, I didn't understand the meaning of it? Okay, that's a cop-out. At the same time, I don't believe you. But right now, she is being put on administrative leave while they're investigating the situation, as she should. Because if you decided that All Lives Matter was a theme during Black History Month, I'm sorry, you have failed as an educator. That's just me. But also move right along, guys. There was also another story I said, because again, I don't know what's going on with these schools, especially these Christian private schools in Oklahoma that expelled a second grader because let me repeat this. A private Christian school in Oklahoma allegedly expelled a second grader just because she had told a female classmate that she had a crush on her. And of course, the school, prompted in pride, where they sat there and decided to throw the Bible at her, said that, oh, okay, well, God didn't make Adam and Eve. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and that it's a sin to do all this stuff. My thing is, you basically told us to a second grader who, again, kids in themselves, kids themselves will always change their minds every 5 seconds. Anybody that's ever been around a second grader or a third grader, fourth, fifth, they always change their minds every second of every day. And this could have been completely innocent, y'all. It really could have. But of course, expect a Christian private school to overreact and throw the Bible at everything. The parent is seeking to, this parent at this point is seeking to go against the school with a lawsuit, although it has not been in favor yet. But an LGBTQ group in Oklahoma is actually offering to help with the family for all needs. And again, this is the only thing this is why I say, and I'm not trying to be partial, because I don't like religious schools just because of this. I don't, because the first thing they'll do is they'll grab for Bibles. Everything is a grab for Bible situation, and I'm just like, it's a child. It is a child. Let her be a child. She's not harming anybody. Let her be a child. It's that simple. But of course, we'll see what happens when it goes from there. Another story that I thought was crazy, because again, it just seems that all schools are losing it these days. Wisconsin teacher was put on administrative leave after asking students how they would punish slaves. Teachers at a Wisconsin school actually had brought up a lesson plan which was related to the Code of Hammurabi, the code of law that sets punishments and fines in the ancient region of Mesopotamia. You know what? I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that wrong. Mesopotamia, Tamia. I'm almost certain I'm pronouncing that name wrong. But anyway, the scenario they gave was, a slave stands before you. This slave has disrespected his master by telling him, "You are not my master." How do you punish the slave? Now, again, this was done during Black History Month. where it is amazing to me that this history course that they're trying to go to was that you wanted to sit there and tell kids, hey, you're a slave master. You own slaves. How do your slave just sat there and told you you're not my master. How do you punish this slave? Y'all, who are these educators that are so tone deaf and unaware of what they're actually putting out there? Because again, this is not an assignment you give a child, but this is those, I guess, with these educators out here. It just amazes me what they actually put in a child's mind. It's like, oh, well, if I got slaves, and you want to put that mentality out there? I was like, what is wrong with you? And again, teacher has been put on administrative leave as they investigate the situation, and apologies have been made to parents. Because if you got black kids, and you can imagine your son coming home, I got this assignment that I'm not really comfortable about, and the mom sees it, oh, that mom's going to come up there and raise all types of crap. But again, it just amazed me so. Another story which actually amazed me is that Fox Business News show Lou Dobbs, Trump's biggest supporter on Fox News. Well, he's looking for a job.
Lou Dobbs tonight, which happens to be the highest rated show on the network Fox Business, is suddenly canceled. Dobbs, who peddled and encouraged false theories of election fraud all the way through this saga, has also been named, along with two other Fox hosts, in a $2.7 billion election lawsuit this week. Our chief media correspondent, Brian Stelter, joins me now. Brian, can you remember a network ever canceling its highest rated show?
This is exceedingly rare, Aaron. The closest thing to it is when Fox News fired Bill O'Reilly when his secret history of sexual harassment settlements was revealed. There's no sign of that with Dobbs. Instead, it's Dobbs' extreme content that is the issue, and his weakness with advertisers. Of course, he was a sycophant for President Trump, one of Trump's biggest boosters on TV. And now there's less use for that. Trump issuing a statement tonight praising Dobbs, saying he is and was great. He had a large and loyal following that'll be watching closely for his next move, and that following includes me. But you know what? Dobbs is not going to be seen anywhere anytime soon. Fox is sitting him on the bench. They're going to pay him to stay off TV for the time being.
Wow, it's just pretty incredible. I mentioned there were other Fox News hosts we know also included in the Smartmatic voting machines lawsuit, including Jeanine Pirro and Maria Bartiromo. Any sense of whether this is related to that, what their fate?
That's definitely the next big question. I hear no imminent indication that Pirro or Bartiromo are next, but that's the clear issue now within Fox. This is one of those cases, Aaron, where it's 2 + 2 = 4. There's a massive lawsuit breathing down Fox's neck, another possible lawsuit imminent, and the next day they fire Lou Dobbs. This is 2 + 2 = 4, but it's also 5, 6, and 7. Dobbs.
So it's kind of interesting, y'all, for all those that don't know. Yes, Fox News is actually being... The Fox network in itself is being sued. Because, keep in mind, guys, during the election, Fox News, especially Lou Dobbs and other Fox celebrities on those shows, were pretty much peddling Trump's theories about election machines being rigged for Joe Biden, about mail-in fraud and things of that nature. Now, specifically, they talked about a certain business, SmartTAC, which again was one of the ones that was over those electric voting machines, and saying that they had, they were part of the deep state, they were for Biden from all this and things of that nature. Which, come to find out, none of it is true. So again, Dobbs and other people who are other Fox so-called news people, were listed in a $2.7 billion lawsuit by SmartTech, which is a voting technology company. And trust me, $2.7 billion, because they did lose a lot of business, and of course, damages to their reputation, things of that nature. $2.7 billion. To where Fox News is now trying to cut weight. They are simply trying to do everything possible to make sure that they not only cut weight, but at the same time, they're trying to do a spin on this, because this is a legitimate lawsuit which could actually damage Fox News moving forward. I just think it's kind of funny to watch Fox News sit there and send people home and then pay them not to be on the air anymore. That alone is still crazy. And I also did talk about this. Moving on, I did also talk about this story as well about former Seahawks lineman Chad Wheeler pleading not guilty to domestic violence charges. And I simply said that this man decided to beat the snot out of his girlfriend at the time because he said his girlfriend wouldn't bow down to him. And at the same time, he was saying that he had mental issues and things, that he was disturbed and things of that nature. But unfortunately, the victim itself is still alive and she is healing. But of course, he was released from the Seattle Seahawks. He did pay his $400,000 bail, but again, a lot of press was not made about this. And again, for those that remember Ray Rice, when Ray Rice had his domestic violence issue about hitting his wife in the elevator, his then girlfriend in the elevator, and every news cycle ran with it. However, it is amazing to me when the color of the person is in black, how quiet or how very little traction the news actually gets. Because domestic violence is nothing to laugh about, but at the same time, if you're gonna put a black NFL player on blast for domestic violence, the same should go for the white people. And yet this has been silenced across all news cycles, which I find completely and utterly amazing. There's just no other way I could put that. The fact that there is very, very little traction about this should scream volumes over actually how they handle stuff. And also, moving right along, guys, Kyle Rittenhouse, I'm surprised this dude is still out after what he pulled.
Without telling the court, prosecutors want him arrested again and his bond increased. But in documents filed late today, Rittenhouse's defense team says that he is staying in an undisclosed safe house because he's receiving threats. In new court documents filed Wednesday, prosecutors say Kyle Rittenhouse is no longer living at the Antioch, Illinois address listed, breaking a requirement to update the court when he moves. Prosecutors argue they should know where Rittenhouse is at all times, writing, quote, "Rarely does our community see accused murderers roaming about freely." Rittenhouse is accused of shooting 3 men during the Kenosha protests in August, killing 2. State attorneys say he's not taking the charges against him seriously, pointing to these images. The 18-year-old at a Mount Pleasant bar drinking. Prosecutors say he also flashed white supremacist signs. They want him arrested again and his bond upped $200,000. Kimberly Motley represents one of the men Rittenhouse shot in August.
I think it's outrageous. His bail should be significantly increased. He should be looking at felony bail jumping charges. There should be more consequences to what he's doing.
Rittenhouse's attorneys countered late Wednesday, saying he's at an undisclosed safe house because his family is getting threats. They argue they tried to give prosecutors his new address if they kept it secret. They refused. Defense attorneys wouldn't speak with us on camera tonight. Is Mark Richards available?
We're not giving any comment this afternoon.
Rittenhouse could spend the rest of his life in prison if convicted.
So again, it amazes me so that Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy in Kenosha, Washington, shot and killed 2 people to defend businesses that he did not own in a town that he did not live in with a gun he wasn't supposed to own. And now that he is basically, of course, his family's getting death threats. I wonder why. At the same time, they're still moving him. And again, my thing about bail is, this. If you're out on bail, and you're supposed to report your whereabouts at all times, why in the world can your family just move you to a safe house and tell the judge, okay, well, the reason we moved him to a safe house was because he's getting death threats. But you failed to notify. That's bail jumping. The judge can literally recall the judge can recant your bail and you're right back in jail. Which he should be. He's an adult. He should be sitting in jail until the time of his trial at this point. But it is amazing to the leeway they are giving this young man. And I'm thinking to myself, but you wouldn't give it to a young black man, but you'll give it to a young white dude. Yep. Should have saw that one coming. But again, his trial still hasn't happened yet for what's going on. So again, we're definitely going to go from there. Actually, let me make sure about one other thing, guys, because I had something else, and I think I might have I don't know if I skipped it or I forgot about it. Oh, that's pretty bad. You know you're starting to go through stuff and you think you got everything and you really don't. Yep, I'm gonna have to go back and find that one. But anyway, another story I got, guys, before our next to last one here is you want to talk about some crazy stuff, and there's two sides to everything. This one is. Now keep in mind, a woman that was arrested, I don't know why they call it a Capitol riot, it was a failed coup d'etat. This woman was down here, was a part of the coup d'etat, of the failed takeover, if you will, of those white domestic terrorists. She was one of the ones that raided the Capitol on that day back in January the 6th. Now, of course, she was arrested, but she asked the judge to go on a prepaid trip to Mexico, in which the judge granted her request. I cannot make this up. This woman right here sat there and said, at the way bottom, keep in mind, this woman said, and I quote, "I am proud of my actions. I effing changed the Capitol Day with Patriots. Today, hell yes, I am proud of my actions." Yeah, her, who was a part of the white terrorist that turned around and tried to stop the count of the Electoral College votes, and is asking the judge, who's on charges, to go to a trip to Mexico that was supposed to be for work related. I cannot make this up. I can't make this up. It's like, how in the world do you sit there and you can just literally and figuratively just go. I am hard pressed. I am very much hard pressed how a judge sees it okay. Because to me, that's a flight risk. I'm sorry. To me, I see nothing more than a flight risk. You are not going to sit there and tell me that, for the simple fact of the matter, that, she's going to go to Mexico. Who's to say she's going to come back? She's liable. She is liable to run because of the charge she's facing. And I think to myself, that is nuts. Really is. But it goes to show you there's two justice systems in America. The last story I got, guys, is a little bit, like I said before, it's an update on the Andre Hill case, in which he was the man that was actually shot by an officer when all he had on his hands was a cell phone, and here's the latest news about that.
Police officer now under arrest in Ohio facing a murder charge. Authorities say he fatally shot Andre Hill, who was holding a cell phone. The former officer was charged for failing to start his body camera until after the shooting. The family is now responding tonight, and here's ABC's Alex Perez.
Tonight, the heartbroken family of Andre Hill applauding the grand jury's decision to charge Adam Coy, the former Columbus, Ohio police officer who shot him, with murder.
We're happy. It made my day yesterday, and I don't want him to have died in vain.
And the grand jury here found the truth. Andre Hill should not be dead.
It was 3 days before Christmas. Hill, affectionately known as Big Daddy, was walking out of a garage of a home he was visiting when he encountered officers who were responding next door to a non-emergency call for a suspicious vehicle. Coy, who opened fire within seconds of arriving on the scene, told investigators he thought Hill had a gun. The officers did not activate their body cams until after the shooting. The camera's rollback feature captured Hill with a cell phone in his hand, but no weapon. Authorities say Hill was unarmed.
Let's cuff him up. He's still moving.
The officers handcuffed Hill as he bled, but several minutes passed before he got medical assistance. Coy's lawyer says he fired because he felt he was in imminent danger.
Even though he was mistaken that he didn't have a gun, that mistake was an honest belief and one that was reasonable based on the totality of the situation.
And David Coy's attorney says he intends to plead not guilty. He's due in court tomorrow. David?
Alex Perez with us.
Crazy, right? That it's amazing. Like I said, it took the attorney general, which I find amazing. Because again, Daniel Cameron, are you listening? Because that's exactly the job you're supposed to do. To where they came back and said, yes, he should be tried for murder. And it's amazing. Of course, I expect the defense attorney to defend the officer, but it's always the key words you keep hearing. He feared for his life. He was in danger. He thought he had a gun. when clearly the body cam showed a cell phone. And at the same time, you were caught manipulating it. I have been saying this about body cams with law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers should not have any control of their body cams. They should basically, when they put it on, it activates. At the end of the shift, they take it off, it deactivates. But if they tamper with it, or if they try to mess with it, my thing is, if you tamper with it, or try to destroy it, or alter it in any way, you, my friend, should be brought up on charges, and whatever case you're working is tainted and should be dismissed. Watch how quickly cops will come along, because cops will hate nothing more than a procedure, than a small procedure to prevent them from getting a call or an arrest. And that's how it should be. Officers should not have control over the body cameras. They should not be able to turn them on and turn them off. Which in this case, unfortunately, Mr. Hill's life was lost because of a trigger-happy cop. Call it what it is. But we will keep tabs on that as that case unfurls. But let's go ahead and get to our feel-good news segment, because like I said on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things of doom and gloom, and sometimes not so sprightly, but hey, it's the weekend. And unless you're up north, knee-deep in snow, which we hope you guys are all okay. But for the rest of us, it is the weekend. We want to leave out on a positive note, get some good vibes, a little bit of funny. That's what I try to do. I'll start with the first one, because I did do this one on Wednesday as well, about the guy from GameStop, with GameStop stock, which a lot of people earlier this week made a killing off of. This young man here actually made about 30 grand off of his GameStop stock. And what did he decide to do? He decided to take a majority of that money and actually go buy video games to donate to a children's hospital. And I thought that was pretty cool, this young man, to go ahead and do that. You can see right there, he bought some Nintendo Switches and a buttload of games, to where kids in children's hospitals can, have a little fun while they're recovering and play some video games. And I thought to myself, that was pretty cool as far as paying it forward, because you hear most people when they come up to them, get a windfall of money they never had, may do some certain things, but this guy was thinking about paying it forward and just helping out kids the best way he knew. So Mr. Khan, I have to give you props for that, dude, because you are a gentleman and a scholar for that. Moving right along, guys, I thought this was cute that two COVID-19 patients who were also a couple who, because of the COVID-19, couldn't actually see each other, but they've been together for 63 years, decided that the nurses in the hospital decided they could reunite them by planning a dinner date. Which, this is actually a couple right there that's been together for 63 years. Wow. 63 years. That is amazing, personally. But the couple right there is the ones who actually had the dinner date through various precautions, because the nurses did take every precaution to make sure they were together. And of course, Mr. Martinez decided to check on his wife, because he sat there and said he had his own issues, but he wanted to make sure that his wife was taken care of. And of course, that's the lovely couple right there. And that says a lot, to where if COVID-19 doesn't, there's going to be some women out there saying he's risking COVID-19 to be with his wife, and I can't get a text back. That's going to make somebody mad. But that's going to make some people mad when they read that. But again, it's that whole, like I said before, I like the fact of happy couples, especially couples who have been together for 50 plus years. I think 50 is the silver age. I think 50 is the silver anniversary. Anniversary etiquette just goes over my head sometimes. But I think 50 years is the silver. I'm almost certain about that. The last feel-good story I got, guys, is basically, I don't know if this is funny or the fact that this child, these parents may have an alcoholic on their hands.
Boost, Willie, and we got a good one for Friday.
Okay.
All right, one of the great things about a spicy margarita is, well, everything, but also how colorful and festive it can look, even to somebody who is way too young to have one. Here's what we mean.
Whoa, he's drooling. You want that spicy margarita?
It's a toy gun.
Look at him, babe. Yeah. He wants it so bad.
Well, Mom and Dad better keep a close eye on that little baby and their drink, but in his defense, it does look like a circus in a glass. That little round thing, doesn't it?
I can tell our viewers from experience that's exactly how Savannah looks at a margarita, right down to the drool.
It's true.
Just a little bit of...
Now, I'm not gonna lie, it is cute, but I was like, isn't that kind of disturbing that he is just drooling over a margarita at that age? I'm not judging. Not judging. Just saying he might be a little bit of an alcoholic already. But Oh, that's gonna come back to haunt me. Your baby slightly might be an alcoholic. But anyway, that's really all the stories I got, guys, for this one. So before I get out of here, I do gotta do some shameless plugging. I will start with Uncle Obie's Adventures and More. That is my travel business. Yes, your boy does travel. So if you need a hotel booked, if you need hotels, if you need rental cars, you need airfare, you need the full vacation package, whether you're going in-state or out-of-state, let me help you, just because I can get you better deals than Hotels.com, than Expedia, than Travel, and all those other places. Let me be your concierge, because at Uncle Obie's Travels, Adventures, and More, we just don't sell travel, we sell great memories. And as of right now, of course, if you go on Facebook at Uncle Obie's Adventures and More, you'll be able to find my page. I do have a referral page going on right now, guys. Basically, if you refer anybody to me for travel and they book with me, you, my friend, will get $100. I do mean that. $100 cash app, or however you choose to get that, you will get that from me, and there is no limit on the amount of referrals that I get. So as long as they refer to me, when they book, you get paid. And hopefully at Uncle Obie's Adventures and More, let me be that person that gets you that travel destination that you want to be in. Also, if you have some shirt ideas or cup ideas or things that you just want to put on a mug, then Little Creations by Kelly is for you. As you can see here, she does various stuff for Christmas shirts, or just for handmade rolls, or for the lock life. If you're about that lock life, as you see my locks that need to be twisted, need to show. But if there's an idea that you can put on a shirt and it's reasonable, then check out Little Creations by Kelly, because as you can see her work, she even does birthday shirts. She even does masks. She even does aprons. If you're about the sipping and the painting kind of thing. We tried that once. I found out I was a terrible painter. But again, as long as, like I said, if it's reasonable and it's workable, and as you can see from the work that she does, she definitely does do various stuff. So if you got an idea that you want on a shirt or on a mask, or just really something that you think is going to stand out and be original, then Little Creations by Kelly is for you. Definitely reach out to her Facebook page and go from there. Now, also, fellas, I hate to say this, it is February the 6th. It is February the 6th. You know what that means. We are 8 days from whether or not your relationship may not make it past Valentine's Day. So what that actually means is, if you're not already scrambling to get the roses, to get the cakes, or whatever you choose to get for your significant other in your life, Tanya's Touch of Elegance does have a special Valentine's Day special that I will let her tell you about.
Hi, I'm Tanya with Tanya's Touch of Elegance. And during this COVID time, trying to stay safe, we are going to present a Valentine's Day special for two. I'm going to present this video, and you just give me a call or text me at the end of the video and let me know if you're interested, and we can have a dinner for two delivered to you. I will have the prices forthcoming by the end of the week, but just a little something to pique your interest. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that's actually the special that he has, special that Tanya Touch of Elegance has. Not only does she does catering as well, because trust me, as a person who's ate her food, I can definitely attest to that. But if you do want to take advantage of her Valentine's Day special, you can definitely reach her out to her at 615-438-5476, or go to Tanya's Touch of Elegance on Facebook and reach out to her via Messenger. Her prices are also up to where you can actually see what she's offering. But guys, the cutoff time is going to be this Monday, February the 8th. Again, I repeat, the cutoff time for this package is going to be Monday, February the 8th. So as you can see here, there's the gift packages he has there that you can definitely take advantage of. And I can tell you right now, the Flores, if she's doing the steaks, you are not going to be disappointed. Aside from that, guys, the last thing I'll have is certainly last but not least, my buddy Vaughn, Big BZA Dot, Facebook, as always, BBZA on social media. Also has some podcasts. He will be returning with his podcast, and I can't wait to see when he comes back, because I'm pretty sure he's going to have a lot to say. But in the meantime, you can definitely go to his Facebook page at BigBZA Dot, and if you're his friend, cool. If you're not his friend, go at him. He's friendly sometimes. But once you are his friend, definitely go to his videos, and you'll be able to see the podcast that he does. The first one I'll talk about is the BST Intercast, in which is a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers. I call Vaughn the king of weird trailers, because he always finds the weirdest ones that sometimes make me question him, but also at the same time, he does find some ones that go, okay, I can dig that, because that's how he got me into Rent-A-Pal, and now it's one of my favorite movies. Favorite subtle horror movies, I should say. But again, it's an interactive show, as you can see on the right side, so if you talk to him, he definitely will talk back, and trust me, he will talk back. But that's BST Intercast. He also has another show called, for the sake of this podcast, we'll call it RAF. What is RAF? It is the pool of ratchets we sometimes ever chosen to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Vaughn's mission in this podcast is to make you laugh. He finds videos to a certain theme in which are funny and sometimes are downright gut-busting. But it's also an interactive show as well, and trust me, he wants your opinion on a lot of the stuff that he actually plays, and that's RAF. Another podcast, which I'm looking forward to when he brings that back, is the Rhythmness Music Podcast, in which you can reminisce over the rhythm, in which Vaughn, myself, and others will actually go over music, whether Vaughn brings up or asks us to bring, and we just listen to it and give our opinion. Now, we are different on a musical scale, but differences in musical taste lead to great conversations, and that's what Rhythmness is all about. And finally, he has another pop-up show. He has a pop-up show called Funkin' Around. What is Funkin' Around? Well, Vaughn is a beat maker. He makes beats like this. Now that's just a taste of what he does. Now Vaughn is a person that likes to play with the ivory keys. He is a musical genius when it comes to making beats. I hope he hops back into that pool very soon. But with that being said, he also likes to show the process of how he comes up with the beats from beginning to end and actually showing the final product. And that's what Funkin' Around is about. And it usually is a pop-up show. It just depends on when he's feeling inspired. He might do one a day. He might do 4 times a day, depending on what the mood strikes him. But he definitely wants to hear people's opinions on beats, and especially going from there. Now, all this shows can be found under his Facebook page at Big BZA Dot. And, of course, look up for Big BZA Dot on social media, as he will be returning back soon with his podcast. I, for one, cannot wait, because, like I said, a lot of stuff has happened, and I truly want his opinion on it, because even though I value other people's opinions, I value other people's opinions, it's just interesting to see what area they come from, because at that point, it's just interesting to actually have conversation. And if anybody has known me right now, if anybody knows me at this point, I certainly can talk. So, with that being said, guys, the last thing I'll say out here is just that my podcast schedule has changed a little bit. Every Thursday is still every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is still the Burned Out Podcast, in which I tell stories from an IT background that are meant to be funny. If you've worked with the public, if you worked in retail and customer service, and you have those scars and you have those horror stories about dealing with the public, then the Burned Out Podcast is definitely going to be for you, because it's my goal to make it funny, and if you find it funny, then great. And if you don't find it funny, then you need to lighten up, because I'm talking about you. Aside from that, guys, every Wednesday will be the midweek How the Frack We Got Here podcast from 8 to 10 p.m. And on Fridays, Get Bit has moved to Fridays at 8 to 10 p.m. Get Bit is my blurred podcast, in which I cover everything from video games, superhero television, to anime, to comics, to new things, as we did last night with my special guest, Chad, as we covered WandaVision, and he gave some interesting theories about that as well. And of course, on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon is the weekend edition of How the Frack We Got Here that you're currently watching now. And of course, a little bit later tonight, between 8 to 10 p.m., will be the Off Limits podcast. Now, what is Off Limits? It's the podcast that goes there. We talk about anything and everything, and I do mean anything and everything, because nothing is sacred. We want to move past this taboo of just not talking about anything just because it wouldn't be proper. It's proper to talk about everything. So all my shows have their own podcasts. The other podcast. All my podcasts have their own Facebook and YouTube pages. So they're on Facebook or YouTube. You can look them up by their names. The Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, that is GITBIT, and the Awfulness Podcast. Whether on Facebook or YouTube, you can look them up and see every podcast that I've done this far. That also being said, guys, the last thing I'll say is that COVID-19 is real. We need to start wearing masks. We need to start wearing masks, start being a little bit more... start really planning our days as far as trying to avoid large crowds, not trying to go out as much. I understand the cabin fever is real, but unfortunately there are way too many cases and not enough ICU capacity at this point to where we can just pretend like everything is normal. It is not. As long as we practice social distancing, wearing masks, making sure we're staying clean, making sure that, you know, if you're sick, you know, please isolate yourself. If you're very sick, then please seek medical attention. But the little things that we do now will actually help us get these cases down in the long run and get kids back to school. Because nobody will know. I definitely don't want kids to go back to school at this rate because COVID cases are just way too high. Aside from that, if you're a doctor, a nurse, nurse's aide, doctor's aide, environmental people that work in the hospitals that are watching this podcast, sincerely thank you for everything that you do, because you guys are really the MVPs right now. And if I were you, I'd be going to Biden and Madam President Harris and saying, Madam Vice President Harris and saying, we need these student loans wiped out. Also, essential workers like teachers who are teaching remote, first responders, those that are working in gas stations and grocery stores, those that are truck drivers, those that work in warehouses like Amazon, and those that work in logistics like United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and all of that. Thank you as well, because for a lot of us, we're able to work from home, and that's great, but a lot of us were not able to work from home, and they actually had to make sure of keeping themselves protected while keeping the lights on for the rest of us. So, with that being said, guys, last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. I keep on saying the last thing. It's never the last thing. I promise this is the last thing. But the thing about How the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. We're not trying to change minds. We're not trying to persuade people. We're trying to do what the news stations of old did, which is basically just informing you and allowing you to make up decisions for yourself, because an informed community can make better decisions than an uninformed one. An uninformed one got us Trump. An informed decision got us our first black Madam Vice President, who will probably spend the first year of her first term cleaning up the previous person's mistakes. Yay. Aside from that, guys, be safe, take care of each other, and we'll get through this.